We are 54 independent countries in Africa continent. We have 54 seats in the UN Assembly. We have 54 flags which represent our sovereignty, which we are proud and jealous for. But in reality, are we really free? When we look at the countries that we sit with, countries from the Western, from the North and Middle East, can we say that these countries, do they see us and treat us with that due respect? Do they treat us in equal ways? Do they see us the same? Do they treat us the same way that they're treating everyone? Which I doubt.
The failure of the African Union, because I mean they are failing to do that, but even the countries in Africa should be making sure that they put Africa and Africa's agenda as a priority. We need to have an Africa which is gun-free, no war, no killings. And that they were supposed to achieve by 2020, but they failed. That is still happening. African countries which are rich in mineral resources. I think we know that the West is creating this instability so that they can continuously loot their mineral resources. So it's basically that. And you would find that we have a situation in Africa where we are still not yet putting Africa first and making sure that we make our resources to work for us. And by that, we will be able to even sustain ourselves, not even depend on any other country. But unfortunately, then we have a lot of leaders in Africa who are unfortunately puppets to the West and who are controlled and who are placed by the West to lead those countries.
Would you say our president is one of them?
Hey, Mr. McGee.
You know, they are blaming France for all the problems in Africa. We are responsible for everything. I mean, France or the West or someone else. There is always someone to blame, you know, for all the challenges of Africa.
Europe with the West, they are planning to recolonize Africa. But how are they planning to recolonize Africa again? Of course, they're doing this with the simple method which they have put in place for some times now. It is by sending their military troops all over Africa and build different military bases in Africa continent, all in order for them to control Africa even for more closer. The reason that they have to put in advance, it will be like, no, we are here to help you fight the terrorists. We are here to help you develop your countries. We are here to do 1, 2, 3, 4. The reasons which they never respect any of it. Instead, they are here in Africa to make sure that they continue to control Africans with their politics. These people, they have seen and consider Africa continent as their small market.
At the end of the day, it is critical for the U.S. to have a footprint on the continent. Even a little goes a long way. The same can be said of U.S. business investments. Africa is of vital strategic importance to the United States. We can't let China or Russia become the preferred security or business partner.
You see, they are even fighting against China and Russia, believing that these two countries, they have come to steal their market in Africa continent. In the reality, it is all us Africans who believe that we are independent.
The sense about us celebrating independence, I don't know why we celebrate independence, because we are not free. We are not given the free will to make decisions on our own mineral resources. There's always Big Brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you. It's either they set you up with the opposition and they'll be supporting the opposition against you from the back, or they cause unnecessary chaos in your country so that you are not able to even govern your own people. They will do things to make you not to be functionable. And of course, any country that don't have peace cannot develop. You have to have peace before you talk about development. I'll give you a simple example about Sierra Leone. Every mining company that is in Sierra Leone today is owned by a foreigner. every mining company. If it's not the Chinese, it's the American, it's the British. You cannot be coming to our country and take everything that will make us develop, and then you still treat us as inferior people, as if we don't know what we're doing. I think that is wrong. And these are the things I believe that are stopping Africa from progressing. We don't have a say. The sense about us celebrating independence, I don't know why we celebrate independence, because we are not free. That is my own take. I'm not speaking also on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone, nor am I speaking on behalf of His Excellency the President. I am speaking as Fatima, as a citizen of a country who believes that things need to change.
These people, they had this plan of recolonizing Africa once again. They had put it in place for some times now. And one of the excuses that they always bring is to come and say that we are here to help you develop your beautiful continent. We are here to help you fight all the rebellions and terrorists. We are here to help you on 1, 2, 3, 4. Because they know very well that allowing their presence to be in Africa continent to make things more easy for them, because they feel like Africans were still that stupid that they can come and do things the way they used to do back in days, by calling us names or by treating us in somehow, by making us become like they are comedians that have to do something to make them laugh and make their days. Well, that moment, it has passed.
They should not allow another person to give them a prescription of how Africa should look like or what we need in our Africa, because we know what we need in our Africa.
The era of the old Africa is over. Today, the African people are more awake than ever and more than ever determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The African people are tired, exhausted by the categorizations with which everyone wants to box us in. Placing us under the influence of this or that power is an insult. It is contempt and racism towards a continent of more than 1,300,000,000 people. The time has come. This is the end of an unbalanced and unjust era where we had no say in the matter. It is time to take our rights into account and to let us take our proper place. But also, and above all, it is time to stop lecturing us and to stop treating us with condescension like children. Rest assured that we're old enough to know what is good for us. We are mature enough to define our priorities, to design our own models, which are in line with our identity.
I think it takes very little to be polite and to give people their basic dignity. Then surely there's no reason to keep me for 30 minutes asking me ridiculous questions, ignoring me for long periods, and just being an ass.
The West, they've been coming in Africa without knocking on the door. They get to interfere in Africa politics. They get to come and stabilize the economy of African countries in order for them to rejoice, because they feel that the unity of Africans, it is something that will destroy them. They're afraid of Africans to be united.
All right. I have no time for borders. Why? I have no time for colonialism. How would you say to me, go and change French on the passport, and then come at the same time and say, leave the borders alone, but remove French. Removing of French on the passport, it's part of decolonizing South Africa.
Yeah.
So you can't speak in folk tongues. It has to be very clear. No one is going to come to our country. They don't have borders in Europe. But when it comes to us, they say, no, you must have borders. Why? The division of of Africa is what makes them thrive. They thrive on the division of the African continent. Can you imagine the minerals of DRC combined with the minerals of South Africa and with a new currency based on the minerals? What we can do to the dollar if we become a United States of Africa with our minerals alone? We can collapse the dollar. We can collapse the strong pound that is based on gold, yet they don't have a gold mine. So why do you allow such things? So my position is informed by that. And someone says, no, we won't vote you if you say such things, we won't vote for you. He's asking me to lie so that he can go around saying politicians lie. When I tell the truth, I won't vote for you. I must lie so that they can vote for me.
Correct.
There were no borders, and we must all of us unite in that call.
Yeah.
Free movements of persons, free movements of goods will make this country flourish. We will even produce our own products. One thing that you South Africans undermine yourself with is that you are the America of Africa. If you are to produce anything here, Africa will receive it with both hands. They'll say, this one is from South Africa. You are known for quality, yet you still don't produce a car. Open the borders. Let the goods move. Let people move. Then produce a car that is South African and sell it.
Why am I hated for saying people must unite? For saying, let's come to, I'm not saying let's divide. I'm saying let's unite. Instead of being called a unifier, who seeks to unify humanity, not only in Africa, in the whole world. No, why do you bring these people? Oh, these people are going to do this, these people are going to do that. Why? Since when is a unifier the enemy of the people and the enemy of peace-loving South Africans, people who advocate for prosperity, for international solidarity with the downtrodden? Why do you now characterize me in the manner you characterize me? It is not my people who say the things that you are saying about me in relation to this question. It is those who enjoy out of the division of our people. They know that the unity of Africa is going to rescue the minerals they've been stealing in DRC and making Eastern DRC look like it's Rwanda and those people don't deserve to be there. But if there is no border of Rwanda and DRC, who will say these ones are there? There's a conflict there which can only be resolved by collapse of borders, where people no longer see others as coming from the other side. That is unity.
And that is the reason why they have to bring all this instability in Africa continent and divide black people so that they can reign. But don't you think that this is something very weird? Because if you have a neighbor whom feel that they are busy provoking you and they want maybe to come and enter your house without asking you, don't you think that it's gonna be much more better for you to approach this neighbor for you and have a better conversation with them and make them understand the reason why you are having this anger toward them, and try to find a proper way to talk with them so that you guys you can be able to invite at each other's place and you can be welcome by each one, instead of you just going to impose yourself by force just because you feel like you are that big brother, and Africa they are just like that small boy that you can come and tell how to do things around.
There's always big brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you.
Now, for the fact that they are forcing themselves to come and live in Africa, to get to interfere in African business, well, that it is not a leadership. That is a dictatorship, and that is what we call the recolonizations of Africa continent. They've been planning for it for some times now. And now that Africans are waking up, that is what is driving them insane. And they feel like they have to speed up the whole process. Now, it is this kind of behaviors that this new African youth does not want to allow. This African youth, they have understand the entire games and the own of this game, how they play their mafias. So this African youth, they have understand that nope, we are not going to let this pass. We are not going to allow this kind of mistake which our elders and our fathers or our forefathers have committed before. we have to do things differently. This African youth, they became as a barrier between this Europe and the West that are trying to recolonize Africa continent once again. Things have changed around. The US, they are no longer having that easy access in Africa's soil. The children of Africans, they have understand that we have to stop this now before it's too late. And this end up putting the fire in the mountain.
This weekend, the military junta running Niger announced it was kicking out U.S. forces conducting operations to counter ISIS and Al-Qaeda in the region. This comes on the heels of reports that Niger is negotiating security-related deals with Iran and Russia.
Is Africa a threat to the Western? Of course, this has become a reality questions which the Western, in their plans, as they are planning to recolonize Africa again, they have to consider all this. Do you know why? Because they have begun to understand that this African youth, they have also started understanding how these things works around. They have access to the informations, they have access to the internet. They can Google and find out what are the plan of these Westerns and how they are planning to start everything.
The Russian Federation had their playbook. They had their passing game through their disinformation campaign.
Even though the Western medias, they've been using their medias in order for them to hide the truth from Africans, well, they make on this small mistake by leaving this small window to Africans, which the Africans, they manage to make their own research by using their devices and connect to the internet and dig even more information and make different research and get to share it in different platforms as we are doing it right now. These are the things that have made the West plans to start failing right now in Africa continent.
Turn on your TV and you will see the Western media houses highlighting how violent black people are. Believe us, whenever you will hear about violent fights or murders, you will only see black people being the accused. Why is this the case? Does it mean only black people are criminals? Well, the answer is a strong no. But very wickedly, the Western media has shaped the perception of Africans and black people living throughout the world. Even if people of other races and classes are bad and violent, the Western media tries to establish that black Africans are the source of all problems.
Even though they are using their big medias in order to deceive Africans and lie to them, well, Africans, they are still able to understand what needs to be done because they are taking the news which they believe that it can help them and they reject what they think. They don't think that it's going to help them.
Show the beautiful picture of Johannesburg on the media. They don't show a beautiful picture of Cape Town on the media. Durban, I've never seen anything beautiful about Durban. When people show things in the media, they're always shown in the negative light. So when something about Africa is talked about, it's normally bad, it's normally violent, it's normally something about the country or something that just happened where a disease broke, and it's never good. So your perception is what people have forced you to believe. So until you get the heart to go, I'm going, I want to see for myself, you don't know. So all I know is what the news says. So in my mind, I'm like, hey man, I'm not trying to go over there and get kidnapped. It's a reality. It's not me saying it to hypothetically say it. I'm saying from what I've seen.
They are now well informed that Africans, they are well aware of what is happening because they have their own way of finding the informations. And that is the reason why they are standing against us right now, which is a good thing after all, because Africans, they can be able to find their own way out of all this. In the reality, the West, they are finding it very hard for them to justify their presence in Africa continent. They don't have any reason that they have to justify the presence of their military base all over Africa continent because they are now facing the young ones who are full of energies and they are asking a lot of tough questions to understand what is these people doing here when we are having all these things happening in Africa. We don't need the presence of these people. These African youth, they are very angry and decide to start kicking out this military base of the Western, which are located in Africa continent.
U.S. military kicked out of Niger in humiliating exit. In a humiliating turn of events, the U.S. military has been unceremoniously kicked out of Niger. The announcement came during a joint press conference in Niamey, the capital, where the American and Nigerian militaries laid bare the details of the forced departure. Nigerian Colonel Major Mamman Sani Kiau triumphantly announced, "This June 7th flight by the U.S. Air Force's C-130 Globemaster III from Niamey, Base 101, marks the start of a series of several wide-body rotations for the repatriation of personnel and equipment in accordance with the Niger Agreement." Both countries signed an agreement on May 19th for the withdrawal of American troops. Since then, more than 269 items out of 946 and several tons of equipment have already left Niger, according to Kiau. U.S. Major General Kenneth Ekman feebly attempted to save face by announcing the establishment of a joint committee to facilitate the coordination of the disengagement process. This committee is a clear sign of the disarray and incompetence that has plagued the U.S. mission. Prior to this ignominious retreat, over 1,000 U.S. troops were stationed at 2 bases in Niger, tasked with the dubious mission of spying on various militant groups in West Africa. Niger's decision to end its partnership with the U.S. was a direct response to Washington's condescending attitude and threats of reprisals, as pointed out by military spokesperson Colonel Amadou Abdramane in March. This scathing criticism of U.S. diplomacy and military strategy in the region further underscores the complete and utter failure of American efforts. Adding to the embarrassment, Niger also expelled French troops in 2022 after an 8-year partnership, accusing Paris of being unable to suppress terrorists in the region. The U.S. now finds itself in...
This weekend, the military junta running Niger announced it was kicking out U.S. forces conducting operations to counter ISIS and al-Qaeda in the region. This comes on the heels of reports that Niger is negotiating security-related deals with Iran and Russia.
When we're listening this kind of conversation taking place inside the Senate cabinet in the United States of America, this is more clearly showing that Africans, they are now hating them where it hurts the most, because they are being affected by the reactions of Africans who have to kick them out of their countries. Now they're sitting over there and talking about all this and start raising up some reasons, talking about Russia and China who are coming to take over Africa continent instead of them. Through this same conversation they were having, they were discussing about the crisis which is ongoing between Niger and the United States of America.
Focusing on Niger, clearly we bet big. Okay, we bet big on Niger, and right now we're at a point in which we either want to double down or we want to fold.
This Senate, they're talking about Niger. If like African people who are in Niger, they don't have a word to say in all this, because they were talking kind of like in parables, like discussing it and thinking that the truth won't come out and people of Niger won't be able to understand. We don't need them in order for us to understand what they're up to in Africa continent. We don't need their media for us to be informed of what are their plans, because the fact is that the people of Niger, the young people of Niger, have stand on their own to send a very loud message to the Western.
It appears Niger will soon join Mali, Libya, Sudan, Mozambique, Burkina Faso in welcoming Russian troops and mercenaries into their country.
Here is the truth of this crisis that is happening between Niger and the United States of America. The youth of Niger don't need their media to be informed of what is happening. They don't need to beat around the bush. The fact is that they are being accused, saying that Niger is doing business with Iran and Russia, which is not even the fact, because this is just one of the excuses that these people are being hurt, because they can see that Niger have rejected them and try to have some new partners that they can work with and benefit from all this, instead of them understanding that they are failing to do so. And that is where you see them, they are now having that anger toward people of Niger. We are talking about the same people who had come and promised heaven and paradise in Niger, in Africa continent, but they have failed to do so. And the youth of Africa continent, they have begun to understand this for some times now, that all the words that that comes from them, it has nothing to do with what we are seeing here as the reality. So they are not able to handle that.
At the end of the day, it is critical for the U.S. to have a footprint on the continent.
After listening to this kind of speech, how can you blame these African youth that are revolting toward the Westerns? These Africans who have understand that this kind of lies, it will not gonna pass with our generation.
We want to support our democracy and our values, but two, we're trying to be friendly with this junta. And it's leading to a point where we have a kind of a judgment of Solomon, and that we're splitting the goals. And what we don't want is it to leave us with nothing, because we know that nothing will be filled by China, by Russia, by Iran. We also know that the VEOs, the violent extremist organizations, are not going to stop in Niger. There's going to be consequences throughout the Sahel. As the DNI put out its annual threat assessment I think it was recently.
I can't believe this. Let us be honest. These are the same people who are trying to fight over Africa continent, all because of the mineral that Africa do have. During the World War II, we all know that they use Africa minerals in order for them to build up their weapons and different fighting tools in order for them to defeat one another. This is the same strategies that these people, they want to do right now. And they're trying to do all this not in a diplomatic way, by approaching African countries with that due respect in order to negotiate and do a benefit of win-win. No, they want to come and recolonize Africa by force. They want to come and impose their leadership on Africa continent in order for them to have whatsoever they want, in order for them to go and fight other nations out there. They want to do this, obviously, in the previous conflict which took place between Niger and the United States of America. This time again, the big propaganda took place because we know that the Westerns, they are very good to do bad propagandas in order for people to believe them out there as the victims and reject you as one who's supposed to be the victim. The fact to all this conflict between Niger and the United States of America, it all started like this.
This weekend, the military junta running Niger announced it was kicking out U.S. forces conducting operations to counter ISIS and al-Qaeda in the region. This comes on the heels of reports that Niger is negotiating security-related deals with Iran and Russia.
See the kind of propaganda these people, they can use. They are doing this and they will take it, they will release it through their medias, and they will make it the whole world know about what is happening. And then what people of Niger have to know from all this is that no, Niger, they have signed some secret contract with Iran so that they will sell their uranium to Iran, and Iran is going to develop their nuclear bomb project. See the kind of lies that these people, they can come out with. It is true, these people can lie. They even went far to accuse Niger, saying that they are doing some dark dealership between Niger and Russia. But that is not something that people of Africa should not buy, because we know how these people operate. The truth is that
La présence américaine sur le territoire de la République.
The American presence in the territories of the Republic of Njert and Talgal is violated all the constitutional and democratic rules which would make the people sovereign. In particular, through these representatives, Yoloui, be consulted for the installation of a foreign army on national territories.
Territoire national.
what did really happen in order for us to get to this point? Well, a delegate diplomats from the United States of America shows up in Niger, which is one of the African country in Africa continent, in Africa soil. They show up over there by denying all the protocols that they're supposed to follow as foreigners who have to travel to another foreigner countries. They shows up in that country, of course. They shows up in terms of saying that no, we have our military base over here and we are here for some service or for some missions. Once they seated inside, they end up imposing, calling for a meeting to meet the president or the military president of the Republic of Niger, that they want to have a meeting with him. They did not book for any appointment. They did not follow any protocols. But just because they believe that the United States of America, they think that it was a good idea for them just to show up how they feel like. Well, we don't blame them after all, because this is what they are used of after all this time. They can show up at any time of the night they want. They can meet you whether it is in your bedroom or in the hotel rooms, wherever they feel like. They were used to this kind of things, and we saw how some presidents of, African presidents welcoming some delegate from America, secretaries, defense ministers, whatsoever. They welcome these people in the red carpet. Well, unfortunately, that was not the case this time, because they are finding another new generations of African youth who want to do things differently, who don't need to welcome you without you following the protocols, who don't want to accept and welcome you in their office if you do not book for any kind of appointment.
Sous la forme, l'arrivée de la délégation
In
américaine
form,
n'a pas
the
respecté.
direction of the American delegation did not respect diplomatic heads. Indeed, it is in illiterate ways, by verbal notice, that the American government informed the Nigerian government of the date of arrival and the composition of the delegation rooms, as well as the Nigerian authorities to meet without precision any date of its visit. It is therefore out of courtesy and following our military mission of hospitality that the government reported the American neglect.
Réussi la délégation américaine.
The Niger government had to come and tell Americans that you guys, you are being illegally in our soil. But after all that, Americans, these American delegates, they still had the courage to call for the audience, saying or suggesting that they want to see the head of the state, which is the President Abdurrahman Jani. Wow, what a shock. What can we say? This is an Americans who are in other foreign land and imposing to see the head of the state, even though they have arrived in this country illegal, yet they have the courage to call for the head of the state to meet them. These American delegates, they did not have any kind of appointment with the President Jani. They did not book for any kind of visit. Even though they are illegal in this country, they still have the guts to call for the president to go and meet them. Wow. Of course, it is how they are used to do with this kind of things. The Western, they always want to have something to say on African leaders, because most of these African leaders used to be their puppets. They were used to all these kind of things. But unfortunately, in this case, things seem to be very different from what they were expecting, because they thought that we can arrive in Niger illegal. We can sit down. We can call for their president is going to come to us and hear to what we have to say to him. Unfortunately, that could not happen with this president of Niger. We all know that for all these years, African leaders, they always welcome American delegates or France or British delegates. They welcome them very nice. They can even put a red carpet for them. Even journalists who come from the Western, you will see the kind of treatment that African leaders will manifest against these delegates. Well, they were using all this because they know that at the end of the day, they will give a certain kind of report to their people or their masters who had put them in power. But unfortunately, Africans, they have fed up. Africans, they are tired of all this kind of treatment that the Western are busy receiving for them. So they had to deal with this. And, well, the president of Niger, the military president, he looked at them, is like, no, you can't just show up in my house and trying to impose things on me on how to do things in my own house. Well, out of respect, he then sent his prime minister, Lamin Zain, to welcome these American delegates. Well, the temperature was in a very high position in that wall where they were seated, to where this prime minister had to welcome these American delegates alongside with some Niger ministers who were seated there. They were not expecting this, because they were expecting the transition president who had to come and tell them, or they have to listen to what was their message. Now that they are seeing the men is not showing up and sending also someone to them as much, they were also being sent by their President Joe Biden. the temperature was not looking that good in the world. Well, straight to the point, the head of these American delegates went on and start accusing or attacking the Niger government, saying that you guys, you are busy selling your uraniums to Iran in order for them to develop their nuclear bomb projects. This was kind of the allegations which pissed off all the representatives of Republic of Niger in that war where they were seated. Because this kind of agreement that they are saying Niger had with Iran, it never happened and it never took place.
Le gouvernement tient à porter à la connaissance du peuple.
The government wishes to bring this to the attention of the Nigerian people and all the people of the international community who have never held it in secret agreement with its partner countries. All agreements signed by the Niger since the advent of the National Council for the Protection of the Homeland respect international law and the rules of transparency. This is why the government is ignoring the trumped-up allegations of the head of the American government by maintaining that the OSI is a semi-annual secret agreement with the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Did the Niger government keep quiet about it? No. They came and tried to clarify the opinions, telling everyone, whether it is in Niger or Africa or around the world, telling everyone that these are false news, that Americans, they are trying to make it, they are trying to make Niger look like a bad country. This is a bad propaganda that they're using against Niger, because the Niger government, they never ever tried to sign this kind of agreement. But was this the first time that Americans, they are accusing Niger? No, this did happen again before. During the time of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, they were saying that it is Niger who's supplying Iraq with uranium so that Iraq, with their president Saddam Hussein, they can develop this chemistry that they want to destroy their people. Do you still remember? We all know that all this declaration, it was a way of them trying to do that bad propaganda against Saddam Hussein with Iraq. We saw how their representative in the United States, Mr. Paul, who came and showed this chemical, saying that Saddam Hussein is busy developing this kind of chemical in order for him to destroy his people. Even though the history ended up showing that they were all lying. They were lying in the name of Saddam Hussein, because we all know what was their mission in Iraq. But this time, they are coming with the same propaganda to use it against Niger, saying that Niger is busy cooperating or signing some secret deals between them with Iran, Russia, and China. They are busy doing all these propagandas, even though they know very well that the minerals of Niger, they're still selling it to this company called Orano of France, which is their allies. Yet they're acting like they're not aware of all this. So these words have pissed off the authorities of Niger very much, because looking at it, you can tell that these American delegates, they have to justify the reasons why they landed in this country illegally without knocking on the doors. So the easy way that they can give as a reason why they are over there is by coming up with these so-called accusations against Niger, saying that no, Niger is doing deal with Iran, which is their enemy. In the reality, they are doing all this because they are angry against the Niger Prime Minister Lamin Jen, who had to visit Iran. This Prime Minister that we are talking about, he first went to Washington to ask them for the help in order for them to defeat the terrorists who are in their country. No one welcomed them over there, and he had to return after he went back to his countries. But just because the threat against the terrorists was in a very high position, well, the government of Niger, they decided to send him to those who are willing to sell them the guns in order for them to fight these enemies that are attacking Niger. So that is how he decided to go to Iran and other more countries to ask them for the help and to buy some drones and weapons, which it can help the Republic of Niger to defeat these terrorists that are being seated over there. But here again, guys, we have to acknowledge that this conflict between Niger and the United States of America did not start today. Actually, it started for some times now, because Niger, they had bought 2 jets, the fighting jets, which America refused to deliver it for the reasons which they believe it's suitable for them. Regardless of all the negotiations which the military governments over there in Niger, they try to negotiate with the US, they refuse to release these jets, fighting jets, because they believe that no, the Republic of Niger is not suitable to have those military jets. Obviously, that's what made the government of Niger to turn their back against the US and go somewhere else, like to Russia, whom they know that they won't be asking them too much questions in order for them to sell them the weapons. Since then, Russia has been supplying all the necessary tools to Niger, whether it is fighting guns, whether it is the military vehicles, whether it is whatsoever they need. Russia is doing so without asking much questions. They do so with that due respect to the people of Niger. Now, when all this is happening, the Americans, they don't have problem at all for Russia to sell their weapons to the Republic of Niger or any other countries in Africa continent. Their only problem, they want Russia to be there as a middleman. In other words, you know, a commissioner, like when you are doing some commissioner for a certain kind of deal, take your percentage, but leave the remainder of the things to the rightful person. So they don't want to see Russia not only to sell the guns to the Republic of Niger, but to see Russia installing themselves in Niger or in any African countries. That is where the problem sits now. They are angry. They don't want the Republic of Niger to allow and welcome Russia troops in their countries and to give them a space where they have to go and put their military base, especially on the west of the Burkina Faso and Mali, because they feel like this will challenge their authorities. Do you know why? Because they want this base. They want to come back and get installed again even more of their bases over there. Another point that they have raised, that they don't want Niger to be buying drones from Iran. For what reasons? Of course, because they believe, according to them, they are saying that this Iranian drones, it kill people without having mercy. So therefore, the chief of these American delegates end up telling the Prime Minister of Niger, saying that the US does not want to see you guys working with Russia and Iran, especially Russia. They don't want to see you guys allowing Russia to come over here and install their military base in Niger. But what they were not realizing at that moment was the determinations of these Niger military leaders that they had against all the mafia of the US. In the world where they were seated, no one else from the Niger government could be able to tolerate this kind of arrogance that was coming from these American delegates. Everyone, they were quiet. Well, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger, with all due respect, he raised up his point by addressing these American delegates to remind them of what they are doing in Niger. That is something that will never gonna happen in America, because no American can allow that. He started by telling this head of this American delegate, saying that imagine Niger landing up in your country illegal and then start imposing on you guys that we want to see Joe Biden. That is something that you guys will never gonna allow, isn't it? So how possible is it that you are coming over here and then you are busy imposing or forcing us to see our president? It does not work like that. We are a sovereign country and we deserve to be treated so.
The one thing we will never allow anyone in the world to interfere with is our sovereignty.
Regardless of the pressures they had to put on this government in order for the transitional president of Niger to welcome them, well, the military government of Niger, they refused to welcome these American delegates. That one end up putting all of them, the head of these delegates with the general of American army in Africa, who was there, in a very hard position. They were so pissed off. They were pissed off because they know very well that no, this is not the kind of African leaders that we've been dealing with all these times. How dare this man is refusing to receive us and take our orders. So they did try to give it another try by extending their days over there in Niger, hoping that this military government will welcome them. But just because they will already show their arrogance, which people of Niger and the entire African continent they were not happy about it. The following day, this head of the general, one of the general in Niger, who was participating in this meeting, he ended up sabotaging them. He refused to show up on the following day of this negotiation that was taking place. Do you know why? Because the men feel like these people, they were over there to disrespect them as a sovereign country. The answer to the questions which Americans they were asking the Niger government to chase and remove Russia in their countries, well, the answer which the military government of Niger had given, it was firm and consistent.
Le gouvernement du Niger regrette la volonté.
The government regrets the will of the American delegation to deny or little more Nigerian sovereign. The right to choose and partner, and the types of partner at the same time, is truly used against terrorists, even though the United States of America has decided unilaterally to expand all cooperation between our two countries. Also, the Nigerian government forcefully denounces the descending stupid attitude, accompanied by the threat of resumption, on the part of the head of the American delegation, vis-à-vis the Nigerian government and people.
Délégation américaine vis-à-vis du gouvernement et du peuple nigérien.
Yes, they are a sovereign country and they have all the right to choose the kind of partners that they wish to work with. You can't force them.
One of the mistakes which some political analysts make is to think that their enemies should be our enemies. That we can and we will never do. We have our own struggle which we are conducting towards our attitude towards any country is determined by the attitude of that country to our struggle.
Shifting focus to Central Africa, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has called out Western nations for their attitude and moral lecturing toward Africa.
You condemned the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but you still claim the freedom to deal with Russia, right?
Of course. Today in France, we condemned Israel for some of its actions in Gaza. But did that prevent France from maintaining its relations with Israel? Why is it that when it happens to Africans, we want to judge them? We don't have to judge ourselves. We have the right to have the friends we want, and we are friends with everyone who wants to be our friends.
Soon, there will be a forum again where Africans will be invited with the Russians. Will you go?
Yes, I will go. In June, I think.
Why maintain this link? Why do you maintain it, even if so many Westerners?
Because they also maintain it. The Russians want friendship with Africa and the RDC. Why are we going to refuse them?
Who will collect the most money in Africa? Between China, Russia, the Islamists.
China and Russia are partners, and they come through the front door, so I think they will collect the most money. For me, the most important thing is to readjust the point of view, the way we approach cooperation, partnerships, no longer to consider ourselves as subhumans, but to look at ourselves as real partners, with whom we can have a positive, constructive relationship and not always dominate each other. If that is reconsidered, I think it can change things.
How do you understand that China or Russia, which are not democratic regimes, manage to progress in Africa?
It's not because they don't come with this approach. They don't come with this arrogance, this way of giving lessons, which is frustrating.
You mean that the Chinese or the Russians are behaving better than us Westerners, according to you?
Of course. We don't really understand African realities. It's a shame because I've always said that Europe, for example, is Africa's best partner. Because of its history and its geographical position, we are two continents that are very close. But it's surprising to see how far we are in terms of culture.
Sorry, Mr. President, how do you support that?
We can't understand that they come to give us lessons, for example, on human rights. There is always this condescending look towards Africa and Africans, and this somewhat paternalistic behavior, which consists in believing that they know what we need better than we do.
What do you see it as, for example?
It's this feeling that we have. For example, today, we talked earlier about the aggression we are victims of. We ask that the international community behave as it does in the case of Russia, in the case of the conflict in the Middle East. They tell us, no, it's not the same thing, we're not going to do it there. Whereas we have the same victims of massacres that there are in Ukraine and elsewhere. We are told that it's not the same thing. They know what we need, whereas we demand sanctions. And this war is imposed on us for obvious reasons, for the looting of our mines. We know where these mines end up. We understand that. In multinational firms, mostly Western firms. So it's known and we don't get sanctioned.
The mines that are on your land, which are very visibly used via Rwanda and commercially by Apple, it's a complaint that you, the Congolese state, have lodged, isn't it? What exactly does Apple do? Explain to us, according to you, what it is doing.
They make phones. You probably have an Apple phone.
Does that mean that in the iPhone that we own, there is blood of Congolese victims? And you are sure of that?
Certain.
But unfortunately, we are not given the free will to make decisions on our own mineral resources. There's always Big Brother who decides. And when you fight and say, no, we are not going to do this, they use the system to stop you. It's either they set you up with the opposition and they'll be supporting the opposition against you from the back, or they cause unnecessary chaos in your country so that you are not able to even govern your own people. They will do things to make you not to be functionable. And of course, any country that don't have peace cannot develop.
At the end of the day, it is critical for the U.S. to have a footprint on the continent. Even a little goes a long way. The same can be said of U.S. business investments. Africa is of vital strategic importance to the United States. We can't let China or Russia become the preferred security or business partner.
From this odd tension between Niger and the U.S., well, it was a good opportunity for the Niger government to blow up everything, split the bean, so that the truth can be told at once. Because Americans, they are coming and telling them what to do, how they should remove and stop working with Russia. Yet they are not justifying their presence over there in Niger. So the military government took this as an opportunity to remind them that, no, even you guys, when you are here with your militaries, no one approves your presence here. You impose yourself here. For an example, you arrive, you do not announce anyone that you are coming here and you are coming to talk to our president. So therefore, the main reasons here now, it was a good opportunity for Niger to remove or to get rid of the Americans once for all. Remember, this American military base, they arrived in Niger through Libya. In 2012, when they went over there saying that, no, we are here fighting the terrorists in the Sahel regions, and then they show up already in Niger. Since then, Niger, they've never been the same anymore. They've been the victim of these terrorists, and if they had to ask, how far are we with all this? Because you guys said that you are here to make sure that you stop this terrorist movement around the world, or especially in Africa continent. But yet things are getting even more worse. So they have not done nothing, yet they still want to be there. And they don't want to see Niger working with other new partners who seem to be having that willing to help people of Niger. So that was a very good opportunity for Niger government to spill the beans and let or reminding Americans that their presence are not welcome in Niger for all these years. It's because we have not seen anything that we've been doing.
The Nigerian authorities provide no information on military activities carried out from American bases in Niger, and ignores even the civilian and military personnel as well as the American equipment deployed on the Nigerian soil. In fact, the U.S. military has no obligation, according to the agreement, to accede to the Nigerian demands, to support against the terrorist groups who are violently assassinating our defense forces and security forces, and massacring our hardworking populations. For several weeks, the government has been taking action to note illegal overflight activities, territories by American IRNAs, and which are likely to be concerned about the sensitivity of the air partnership and the relevance of maintaining the agreement of military cooperation.
Therefore, we don't even need to see you anymore in our countries. It is about time you have to leave our countries, because these so-called terrorists, we have not seen what you have done to them. We have not even seen you arresting one of them. But you have the courage to come and tell us on how we should treat these terrorists. You are coming here to tell us on who we should deal with and who we should not deal with. So they end up deciding to remove or to chase the Americans who are based over there in Niger.
The American presence in the territories of the Republic of Niger is illegal.
A year and a day after our government said they were the model of resilience and democracy, they are throwing us out by the scruffs of our neck. And so is it safe to say that this failed, General Langley?
Most of these Americans who are located over there in Niger, they are not diplomats. Most of them, they are there illegal. Their presence, they can't even justify it. Yet, they're committing kind of crime, violating the law of Niger. But when they commit this kind of crime, they don't want to be judged in Niger as a sovereign country. They prefer to take them and go and judge them in America according to the way that is suitable for them. So this was the kind of things that the Republic of Niger could not accept anymore.
C'est par simple note verbale. Numéro 174
It is a simple verbal note, not to mention its 14, 10, 10, 10, 12, that the American side has unilaterally imposed on Niger. It has nothing relating to the status of the military personnel of the United States and civilian employees of the United States Department of Defense on the territory of the Republic of Injured. This is not only deeply unjust in its essence, but also does not respond to the interests of the Nigerian people for the following objective reasons. First, it forces Niger to pay bills linked to the tax on American military aircraft, which the latter must normally pay and which costs the Nigerian taxpayer billions of French fakes funds.
They ended the security pact with the United States, unfortunately, or at least that's their intention at this point.
Our strategic communications, we have a ways to go in our narrative and what our intrinsic value, what we have to offer these countries and the whole government in building out their governance. We need to tell a better story. It needs to be compelling, and it needs to be able to go across civil society.
It is very surprised to see big countries such as the United States of America doing the Russia propaganda in Africa continent. Have not you asked yourself a question to know why they have to come and do this kind of propaganda in Africa continent? Isn't it this a big insult to these African youth who have to feel like no one is making them neglect themselves and they don't have the right to make their own decisions on certain things that they're supposed to be doing as African youth? Isn't it this a big insult to this African youth by making them feel like they are not capable of understanding who's telling the truth and who's lying the truth? These African youth who are able to understand what is happening and make their own research to see what's being hidden behind. That's a very big mistake. Because the kind of lies that the West, they have lied to Africans, it had made this African youth to understand very well that no, these people are liars. Everything that comes from their mouth, it is a simple lie. These people, they have lied so much to the point that even when these African youth, they are sleeping in their dreams, they can still be able to identify the kind of lies that comes in the mouth of this Western, because they feel like it is about time to say no and stop this propaganda in Africa continent. The Africans, we don't have problem with anyone, especially the West. We don't have problem with them because Africans, they are more friendly, they are more respectful. Proof to that, they welcome each and every Americans that arrive in Africa soil. They are so friendly, they'll treat you well, they'll play with you, they'll make you feel comfortable. What these African youth are rejecting from the West is the way that they are treating Africans. It's the way of making Africans feel like, no, we are your masters. All you have to do from your side is to bow and you have to listen to what we are telling you. That is something that this African youth, they are rejecting from the West. What African youth are asking from the West is to respect their choice. They have to respect their choice and stop imposing to them what they don't like. This story of Yemen did not stop there because Niger, they had to go and say the things that no one have tried to do before in that country.
The U.S. has spent hundreds of millions of dollars in that country, invested in that country. Less than a year ago, it was one of our strongest partners. We are now being, as I understand it, from the open source reporting, pushed out of the country, and they have turned towards Russia. Can you just outline for me how this partnership fell apart so fast?
The Russian Federation had their playbook. They had their passing game through their disinformation campaign. Years ago, 7 years ago, you only had about 200 folks across the continent of Africa that were on the internet. Now there's 600 million. Very compelling across civil society, but moreover, very compelling in their militaries right now, driving and putting a wedge between what we teach, law of armed conflict, civilian-led governance, I think is failing because it's being drowned out.
Once again, you can see for yourself the kind of propagandas they're using toward people of Africa, all because they choose or they make a choice to work with Russia or China. You can tell that these people, they don't have nothing good to say, but to always try to find a way to make up excuses in order for them to last longer in Africa continent. What makes them surprise even the most is for the fact that these propagandas that they are saying to what people of Africa does not work anymore, because Africans, they are able to make their own research to find out the legit informations, to find out the kind of countries that they want to work with. So they have lost control on this one. They are not able to control Africans when it comes to their medias or the kind of informations which they have to bring to Africans. They have feel like Africans, they are now able to discover the true informations by using their mobiles, and they feel like they have lost it when it comes to this part.
Now, Congressman, across the board, like I said, we are losing the disinformation from the Russian Federation. Our strategic communications, we have a ways to go in our narrative and what our intrinsic value, what we have to offer these countries and the whole government in building out their governance. We need to tell a better story. It needs to be compelling, and it needs to be able to go across civil society.
Isn't it these are exactly the same words that Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, had said?
Our country is often attacked and is attacked in public opinion by social networks and manipulation. The African continent is the best laboratory. We must make much better use of the France Mediamon network, which is absolutely key and must be a strength for us, and I think that we collectively have to rethink our grammar as.
That is Emmanuel Macron complaining on how they have lost to communicate with people of Africa because their medias, which we all know like CNN, France 24, BBC, all these Western medias, they are no longer having impact on Africa's soil. Africans, they are no longer paying attention to what this media have to say, because we all know this media, they are at what service and what they usually say, how they like to share their propagandas about what's happening around the world, and Africans, they have understand that game. So Africans, they have now a new way of finding information. So through this same American Senate Congress, they had to start questioning the General Glenny, who had to go there in Niger, and they are condemning him, saying that, why did you go there and we have to go and meet a so-called Prime Minister when we assign you to go over there and meet the President of Niger? Why do you have to go to the wrong person? Of course, once again here, they are used to this kind of things of always coming in Africa, sending their delegates, sending their Secretary General, sending their people who represent them, and these people will be well welcome in Africa continent. They'll put red carpet for them. They'll be welcomed by the head of the state of Africa continent. And this is the kind of lifestyle that they used to have all this time. Unfortunately for them, they are no longer lucky enough to have this kind of opportunities, because Niger, they don't want to deal with this kind of people. So they are condemning this general and saying that, why do you have to go and meet the wrong person when you're supposed to be meeting the president of Niger?
General Langley, you went to Niger and you went to have a meeting with the people we trained who overthrew the democratically elected government, and Fox News is reporting that you didn't even get a meeting with the principal decision maker. Is that right?
I had a meeting with my counterpart.
Well, here's the quote. Sources say last week's meeting with the junta was extremely difficult. The administration's envoys did not get to meet with Niger's principal decision maker. Is that a true statement or is that a false statement?
My responsibility is to meet with my counterpart.
And this change is taking place all thanks to these military governments which are seated right now in Africa continent. Thanks to them, they managed to fix things around so that these things of Americans and Europeans or British coming to Africa, sending their delegates, and these delegates, they have to be welcomed in a very special way. That time it is over now. The United States of America, they are very angry against Niger right now. They don't understand how possible is it with all the influence that we have around the world, as they consider themselves as the big brothers in the world that everyone has to fear. How come? How possible is it that this small African poor country have to challenge us and they have to chase us from their beautiful country? So they are not able to understand what has been happening. They have lost control over Niger.
Core values is what we start off with. But there is no syllabus for overthrowing the government, not in our institutions.
Well, they're learning it pretty well, even in the absence of a syllabus, right? Because if you look at Chad, Burkina Faso, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, in a lot of these countries, the coup is led by someone we trained. Now, I put in the National Defense Authorization Act a requirement for you to issue us a report as to how many coup leaders our taxpayers have funded the training for. That report is due tomorrow. Will we be getting it on time?
I'll do a follow-up on that, Congressman. This is a question of strategic access at the great power competition level. It's essential. It's essential that we double down within the authorities that we still have after imposition of 7008.
You heard him very well. So these people, they've been training some of the militaries in Africa continent, all because they want them to be at their service, all because they want them to be their puppets. Now that Niger, they succeed to say no to their proposal, that is where the anger becomes from. That is where the problem begins. So they feel now that we have to raise up our eyebrows and get rid of this military government in Niger before it's too late for us.
What is our coherent and consistent strategy towards Niger? And what do we plan to do to prevent Russia, China, and Iran from filling that void?
Countries that are run by military juntas are not reliable security partners, and part of the value proposition for us having access in Niger would be a return to democratic civilian rule in Niger.
On my part, be able to impart good order and discipline across the forces that is civilian-led.
With all this, now it is very clear to understand what these people, they are preparing in order for them to get rid of this military government that is seated in Niger. So don't be surprised in a few weeks to come or month of what kind of crisis these people are preparing to raise it over there in Niger. You might ask me the question, but what are they going to do? Well, just look for an example in Africa. These people, they enjoy bringing the suffering and instability and making the economy of Africa continent to get collapsed so that they can be able to reign. And that's what they're planning right now. They want to do everything by all means so that Russia and China and Iran, they should not be able to stay in Niger. They want Niger to go back to their knees. But unfortunately, they are forgetting on one thing, that Niger, they have understand their games and they don't have time to pay attention to their nonsense. Instead, Niger, they are now looking forward to see the kind of partners that will come and help them in order for them to raise up even their economy as we're seeing it rising right now. But a simple question to ask is that who give them the right in order for them to decide what people of Niger they have to do? Who give this woman the right to sit inside that American Senate and question or giving up the idea of who should lead people of Niger? Niger is an African country. Niger is not inside America continent. So why they have to have this kind of courage? They are always surprised and they don't understand why these African youth, they are giving all their support to this military coup that have took place so far in Africa continent. When you look countries such as Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Chad, all these countries, under the leadership of this military government, they have the full support of their people, especially the youth of these countries. Because this military government, they present the entire hope of this African youth. Yes, this African youth, they are counting much more on this military government because they understand that they're still also young as they do. Therefore, all their message, all their frustrations, all their angers and everything, it can be represented by this military government. And that is the reason why you see people such as Ibrahim Traoré, the man is there, he wanted to even retire, but people of Burkina Faso, they said, no, stay there, you are doing good, we're giving even more years in order for you to make sure that all your visions can take place in Burkina Faso.
Africa is a continent that has suffered and continues to suffer due to imperialists. These imperialists have but one cliché in their head. Africa is an empire of slaves. That's how they view Africa. For them, Africans belong to them. Our land belongs to them. They've never been able to change their ways.
So the entire West want to get rid of all these military government leaders that are in Africa because they have stand against them and they say no. They say no to France, they say no to British, now they are saying no to America. They are chasing them out of their countries. Therefore, they want now to assassinate them. And then they want to eliminate them one by one. Do you know why? Because these young youth military leaders, they are not at their service. They have said no to be puppet of the West. So what they are regretting now, they say, okay, what make them become different from other African leaders who were or who used to be our puppets? These military leaders are not like a Christian Kobore of Burkina Faso or Ibrahim Braketa of Mali, who could not be able to say no to the US and France during their time. These African leaders, they were so thirsty to do all this, but unfortunately, they had no courage to chase this Western in Africa continent. Do you know why? Because they used to be their puppets. Because they were all here right on their balls. The West used to tell them what to do, and they'll just say yes, Papa, to anything. So again here, guys, you can say whatsoever you want to say about this African military governments. We can criticize them, maybe saying that no, they don't have enough experience to be there. Some of them might even be running out of patience, all because they are expecting to see things working far. But one thing we can't deny, this our fellow African brothers who are in the militaries and defending this beautiful part of Africa. It is for the fact that they have that courage which our forefathers have lacked. which our leaders have lacked before. They are manifesting that voluntary, that willing of saying that, all right, it is about time we change things around. And they deserve a round of applause for that. Do you know why? Because this is what Africans we need right now in order for us to say no to all these manipulations that the West they've been imposing on Africans. We need this kind of leaders to be part of us.
The instability in Sahel is going to raise, especially in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, raises the likelihood that the crisis will metastasize and spill over to the littorals of Africa.
It is not China, Russia, and Wagner who will provide lasting solutions to the very great difficulties experienced by these payers and cases.
Africans are tired. Yes, Africans are tired of all the kind of empty promises that we have heard from the Western. All the kind of like good willing to do good or develop Africa continent, it is all simple words that does not have any impact on African soil. Therefore, people of Africa, all this military government that are leading our brothers and sisters all over the in some of the countries in Africa continent, they should simply understand that the solution to all our problems as Africans will not gonna come from America, from France, from British or Belgium or Germany, neither Russia and China. But the solution, in order for us to develop our beautiful continent, it will come only among Africans. Therefore, it is normal for these African youth to be revolting against the West and to start saying no on the certain things which used to happen before, that the West, they have found that no, it is now a usual case that they can come and tell Africans on how to do things. Therefore, let us motivate this kind of ideas. Let us motivate one another. Let us support one another so that we can be able to develop this beautiful motherland called Africa. Africa with Africans, we've been through a lot. The West, they will come and bring instability in Africa continent and destroy the economy of Africans and do all these sort kind of things because they know very well that they won't be able to live without Africa continent. So they are used to all this. The former president of France, François Mitterrand, once said that France can't be able to survive without Africa. His predecessor, Jacques Chirac, he came also and saying something that we can't bite the hand that feed us because France, we are nothing without Africa. And all these leaders, they know very well that they won't be able to do whatsoever they are doing right now without Africa. But that time it is now in the past because Africans, they have now understand on how to deal with this kind of people. Africans, they want to take their destiny into their hands. They want to do things differently. They want now to make sure that no one should not come and fool them. Not even from through their medias that they used to do before. But this time Africans, they are using everything in their possessions, all thanks to this same technology that these people they have put on place. Africans, we are able to communicate. We are able to pass our message and tell the world of what is happening in Africa and what we don't want in Africa. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. It was very important that we sit here and have this conversation, because we are talking about our motherland, Africa. Africa is what that unites us. Africa is a continent that we should be proud of. Therefore, we are saying thanks so much to all of you for passing your time so that we can be able to have this conversation with you. But before you leave, do me a simple favor. We are taking a very big risk to come out and expose this kind of mafias and lies and this kind of propagandas that the West have been using against Africa. It is a big risk we are taking. All we are asking from you in return is to make sure that you like this video so that they can recommend it to many more African brothers and sisters around the world. They can come also and see this message that we are busy sharing here with you. But if you find anything beneficial in this video, Well, it is very simple. Join this big family of Cool Buzz TV by subscribe to the channel, and feel free to drop us also your comment in the comment section. Tell us also what you think. Share up your ideas. Suggest us with topics, because here at Cool Buzz TV, we are a Pan-African channel. We discuss about matters that is happening in Africa continent. We are trying to work together as Africa so that we can be able to be a powerful continent out there in the world. So feel free to join us, and we'll really do appreciate that. That will be all for today. So for now, continue to be yourself. Be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. Ciao, ciao.
From Cape to Cairo, our Morocco to Madagascar, Batile Azania, Awiaza, Aniniza. From Cape, Ananiz, our Morocco, Ibizani. From Cape, Ananiz, our Morocco to Madagascar, Batile Aza. Amandla awayeshilum sizidube, asina mala sina lutho. Amandla.
Thank you.